Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch. I know, shocking, right? Except I'm going to be talking about what I think could be done with a Switch revision. Now, we all know the Wall Street Journal report came out, and that was focusing on how Nintendo plans to release a new system, a new Switch in 2019 that probably has a better screen. At least that's what their sources are saying. We don't have any factual information. I think it's reasonable to expect Nintendo to release another Switch, whether a Switch Mini, Switch XL, Switch Pro, whatever the case may be, at some point. If not next year, the year after. Next year probably makes a lot of sense for me, but I want to talk about what I think they could do to make this Switch better the second time around. Now, for starters, I want to clarify something. I do not think they should make the Switch smaller. I am perfectly okay if you think they should make the Switch smaller, if you would like a Switch Mini with Joy-Cons that are attached to the sides, but just to address the points on a Switch Mini right off the bat, to make a Switch Mini work would require you making some Switch games no longer work. Joy-Cons attached to the sides, can't play Super Mario Party. Oh, get rid of HD Rumble, can't do 1-2 switch, can't play certain mini games in Super Mario Party. What about Pokemon Go? There's a lot of things that have to take into consideration that I think makes this form factor with the detachable Joy-Cons and being able to dock the system essential for future Switch revisions. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean they can't take this and do something better with it. So for starters, let's talk about what Wall Street Journal mentioned, and that was an improved screen. Now, I've talked about this before, but it's been a while. So let's just look at the Switch screen itself. You'll notice it has a really thick bezel. I think one thing they can do for sure, 100% on a brand new Switch next year, is get rid of that bezel. Yes, there are rails and other technology in here. One of the reasons that the bezel is as big as it is because the LCD panel itself is actually pretty thick. Not quite like a half-inch thick, but it's thick. And with how thick it is, it makes it impossible to fit the rails in and extend the screen all the way out. So what they can do is use newer LCD technology that's thinner. I mean, LCD technology has gotten to the point that it can be almost paper thin at this point, wallpaper thin. There's even wallpaper LCD TVs. They're a thing, and they're not going to go that crazy. But they can use thinner technology that's cheaper now than it was back in 2016, 2017, where they were making this particular Switch anyways. This is a launch unit. And they could make better screens. They might stick with 720p. They could go up to 1080p. Personally, I think they should up it to 1080. But we'll get into that later because the 1080p bump is contingent upon some other changes they could do to the system. But yes, I think a newer screen that's thinner, that gets rid of the bezel, is the obvious next step up. So instead of making the Switch smaller or bigger, just make the screen space that's already here take better advantage of the given space. Now, that being said, there's other improvements they can do as well. Now, we all know about how easy it is to break the connection point here on your Joy-Cons. When you lock them into place, how easy it can be to break it because it uses plastic. I think a redesigned mechanism could be used to make it not be brittle. And for me, I actually installed metal nubs in here, replacing the plastic ones to solve the problem. This could have issues long haul. I could break the rails. There could be a lot more wear and tear. And I'm sure there's a reason Nintendo didn't go with some sort of cheap metal in the first place. So I think they could redesign it in a way to use metal or a better mechanism so they don't slide off. I also think throughout a redesign, they can fix what's known as the loose Joy-Con problem. Now, I don't have this problem, but there are some people that put a little bit more pressure on these Joy-Cons than they probably should. And in doing that, it leads to the Joy-Cons themselves being wobbly. Now again, I don't have this problem, and this is a launch unit that I removed from the dock and put back on the dock several times a day. But yeah, it is definitely something that they can address with a better design, and this could be all redone for a Switch Pro, and it could still work with, the modifications needed would be so minor, it could still work with all prior Joy-Cons. It could just be the rail itself that's made better. That being said, there are other improvements they could do to this as well. Now, one thing I would like to see is some form of D-pad on the left Joy-Con. Now, look, this would make it incompatible with some games when you want split Joy-Cons. So I don't think it should be there as a default option. But what should be there is some form of removable button plate that you can replace with a D-pad, or a D-pad that you can place on top. Now you might think, oh, that's crazy, except the Xbox One Elite controller allows full customization like this. I think Nintendo could easily throw in a customizable form factor for this left Joy-Con that lets you put a D-pad on top of these buttons in some way. Now we've seen some cheaper alternatives out there that do it, and while they work somewhat, they're kind of flimsy and not well put together. Nintendo could engineer something better that allows these 4 buttons to stay as default, but allows you to put a D-pad over the top that could make it work. It's possible. I don't think Nintendo's going to do it, but I would like to see that in a redesign. In addition, for a redesign, the kickstand. We have to address the kickstand. Now, this is not the original backplate of the Switch. The original backplate is, I don't know, down there somewhere. The kickstand is flimsy. We all know it's flimsy. Even this third-party one, it's still just as flimsy because it's using the same mechanism as the other kickstand, the official one. So obviously, the big issue is that the kickstand is, for starters, along the back right side. And when it's along the back right side, it makes it wobbly. We all know. We've knocked it over if we tried tabletop mode. So they could put 2 of these on, one on each side. They could put one bigger one in the middle and just move the heat vents around. It's also possible that they can make the kickstands adjustable. Right now, there's basically one locked-in angle. But wouldn't it be great if we could adjust the angle of the Switch so it could be like this, or this, or this, or this? I feel like having an adjustable kickstand is really what we should be desiring out of a redesigned Switch. Now, other things that they could change about the Switch is, I think, the charge port location. Well, I think it has to stay on the bottom for the sake of the dock. They could add an additional charge port on top somewhere for people that want to plug in and still use tabletop mode. That is one flaw in the design. And there's other devices that solve this, laptops as an example, that have multiple ports you can charge from. Because it's USB-C, they could put another one on top and allow you to charge from that as well. So it's an either-or charge situation. They'd have to put in some mechanism to prevent people from trying to double charge because you could overrun the battery. But yeah, and this is just all stuff that just makes the Switch a bit more functional. Now, control-wise, I don't think there's a lot of issues with the Joy-Con sizes. I know some people like them bigger, like them smaller, like a more ergonomic back here, but there's various cases and things you can put on to make that fit your taste. So I don't think that's really something that's necessary out of the box. I do think they need to make a better flap that covers your games. Now, I haven't had an issue with it, but I've seen plenty of people that do. Making something that's a bit more durable is probably better. And obviously, just having more durable plastic in general around the unit. Now, one thing you didn't see me mention is for the screen is whether or not they should replace the plastic screen, which is very easy to scratch, which caused all the initial scratching issues with the dock, or whether they should use a glass screen. I think they should stick with plastic, especially if they think this device might be bought by children. Now, if it's only going to be bought by adults, then yes, go with Gorilla Glass or whatever they need to do. But when it comes to the plastic front, it's actually more durable for kids. What's worse than a cracked screen or a scratch screen? A cracked screen. Plastic screens don't really crack. So that's a massive advantage for durability. What they should do, however, if they're going to continue with the plastic screen, is include a glass screen protector in with the box. They cost pennies. They could throw it in. I've had this one on since like the second day I had the Switch. Went out and got one like immediately once I realized it was plastic. So yeah, that's just something that I would do to improve the Switch. Now, let's talk about the actual specs and internals. Everything is contingent here on what I want them to do versus what they are more likely to do. All the stuff I just mentioned now would be akin to releasing a Game Boy SP, or a Game Boy Advance SP, as it were, or a Wii Mini, although the Wii Mini removed some features, so maybe not quite Wii Mini. But you get the idea. Basically, a system that's exactly the same as the prior system when it comes to specs, but it adds in better user functionality on the design. And I think that is obviously where Nintendo could go next year. They might change 0 of the internals, just change the externals, and give it back to you, creating a higher quality Switch product that still plays games exactly the same as the old Switch. That is a high possibility and something Nintendo has a history of doing. Hello, DS XL and 3DS XL. Same internals, just with a different outside. What I want to see them do, however, is go above and beyond. I want to see them remove the Tegra X1 chip in here and put in a Tegra X2. The X2 is on the market now. It's only becoming more affordable the further away we get from when it launched. It's obviously the next step up from the Tegra X1, and it's able to safely and securely be backwards compatible with everything that runs on Tegra X1. So minimal work on developer side to make games already running on Switch run on it. On top of that, it's got like double the bus bandwidth. It runs faster. It uses less power. And that is actually something that I think the Switch could benefit from, is a chip that's not only faster and better in basically every regard, even if only slightly so in some cases, like on the CPU cores, it uses less power. And that's going to create a longer battery life. Now, this is where we get into the battery. I would like to see a slightly bigger battery, but even if they keep the same battery, but they change to an X2, this could allow them to run a 1080p display, because the X2 can run pretty close to stock speeds at the current temperatures the Switch outputs. So I think it almost makes it so there's not really a big difference between docked mode and undocked mode. Isn't that crazy? That's one of the big caveats of Switch right now, is when you put it in the dock, it's just a more powerful system because it runs at higher clock speeds because it's got full direct power. Well, imagine you're able to do that, but with a Tegra X2 that uses less battery. The reason the Switch doesn't do that by default is because the battery drain is intense. If they allowed this to run at the full fat, even at 720p, the full fat speeds, it does in docked mode with direct power, the battery on this would last less than an hour. But with a better chip, it could run for 2 hours. And there might even be an ability to do a low power mode and a high power mode. So you can still downclock if you want, but the user can switch on a higher power mode. That would be something very cool and give a lot of user customability about how they want to use the system. If you happen to be in your house and you want it to run at the full fat settings, but you don't necessarily want to be in front of your TV the whole time, you could just run it for a couple hours before you have to plug it in. Not a huge deal. That's just the biggest change I would probably do. Some people talk about adding more RAM. I think more RAM is beneficial, but not necessary. I would like to see them go from like 4 to 6. They're running 4 right now. 6, I think, is the sweet spot. This is where you see a lot of mobile devices running it now, is 6. Some will go up to 8. I don't know if that it needs 8. It's not running Xbox One and PlayStation 4 specs here. It's running mobile chips. 6, I think, would be a logical step up if they were to do it. And as for internal storage, I would love to see them double at bare minimum. I would like to see them go from 32 to 64. That way, at least currently today, there wouldn't be a single game released on Switch that you could not download and install on the internal memory. Unlike today, there are games bigger than the available internal memory that you have to buy a micro SD card for in order to install. So yes, this would actually fix that issue where any individual game could be put on the internal storage out of the box. That needs to be done. That being said, I want to see them pack in a micro SD card, give everyone a 128. I know some people talk about a 32 or 64. Not good enough. You'll find that out in a hurry. 128 bare minimum packed in. Many times the 128s drop down to 30, 20 bucks. Nintendo at the manufacturing level can get them even cheaper. Throw that in a Switch Pro. Include it in there. We get SD cards inside our 3DS XLs and new 3DSs when we buy them. So let's start packing one in with the Switch by default. Give people a little bit of a head start before they need to upgrade their internal storage, or, well, external storage that you insert inside. Anyways, that about does it for what I would like to see improved about the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's a lot of other things we can talk about. We can talk about going to analog triggers versus digital. I think just for durability reasons, that's why that's not a thing. We could talk about having better sticks. There's a whole lot of things we could talk about improving, but honestly, I think if they just do either the outside aesthetic improvements or they do the aesthetic improvements in addition to the internal changes I discussed, we could be looking at just a better product next year that could sell between $300 and $350, also knocking this base model down to $250, or heck, maybe they dare to go bold, remove the dock, and sell this for $200 next year. I know that would make a lot of people happy. I wouldn't care. I'd just be getting the Switch Pro one and doing comparisons, and I don't know. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. I do think it's essential, no matter what they do, that the new Switch next year is compatible with all current accessories, including the Joy-Cons, including the $90 docks they sell, including the power cables, including everything. Everything that's currently out on Switch needs to work basically just the same with a newer Switch model. again, why a Switch Mini just isn't going to work. But that's just my 2 cents. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you want to see changed about Nintendo Switch for a new Switch model? Remember, this isn't talking a lot about software stuff, things we want to improve with the eShop, things we want to improve with Nintendo Switch Online, or the OS, because all of that is stuff that can happen regardless of a new model. We're talking about what could they do to this Switch as it is today to make it better and justify charging more for next year. That being said, I'm Nathaniel Rovajans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button. Subscribe for more content. I gotta say, go Brewers, playing against the Colorado Rockies today, going for the sweep of the NLDS, and obviously, go Pack Go. Catch you guys in the next one.
Yes.